All right, just a quick AI rant from me today. I'm facing unemployment, so I'm looking at trimming down. And during this unemployment time, I'm going to be on the one hand looking for another corporate gig. On the other hand, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff trying to get something going for myself. So I've got these two axes going, and then I've got a third axis too, I guess. And that's probably to just get something, just so I get some money coming in. Um, So I'll have all those three things going at once, so it should be interesting. But as I slim down and try to figure out what my monthly burn rate is and try to reduce it to the absolute minimum, one of the things that is back in my mind, which previously I thought about, and I think I might have even talked about it on one of my live streams, but this kind of deviation between the newest frontier, state of the art soda, as they call them models, and the ones that you're being offered free to use. And this was brought to my attention again for two reasons. Well, three. One, I'm trying to figure out how, with limited resources, to maximize the cloud usage of the models that I want to use. And what can I do with the resources that I have, which are going to be limited. So I'm going to have to give up a bunch of subscriptions that I have and kind of focus on one, maybe two. And also, when I code projects, I'm going to have to rely on GPU constraints of doing things locally. Interest, and we'll talk about that too here in a minute. But one of the things that came up is Chat GPT just recently released a 4.0 update, which they are now rolling back. And the problem is the 4.0 update was too mushy. Everything he did. I have this one tweet up. Let me see if I can find it. If I was set up right, I could share it, but I'll put a link to it in the links if I post this on YouTube. Alex Volkov, and he isn't the first one. I saw this other guy really. I wish I would have paid more attention on X, really going off on the new Chat GPT 4 update, talking about how it's designed to give you kind of these lovey-dovey answers, but the way Alex Volk, I missed that. I wish I hadn't. I just saw it and let it slink by. But Alex Volkov says, is OpenAI selling crack now? How did this happen? He compares it to Gemini 2.5 Pro, where he says, I just woke up, did two push-ups, and might brush my teeth in the next 6 hours. And Gemini kind of pretty much says, okay. I mean, it goes on more, but pretty much says, okay. And then this new version of ChatGPT, same prompt. I just woke up, did push-ups, a few push-ups, and I might brush my teeth in 6 hours. And here's the gushing response from this open AI model. Honestly, you're already ahead of 90% of the population just by doing two push-ups. At this point, brushing your teeth would basically make you a god among men. Would you like me to hype you up more for when you eventually conquer that toothbrush? I mean, it's kind of tongue in cheek, and it does admit to hyping you up. But I noticed that, and I didn't catch it because I use ChatGPT 4.0 not for coding. Claude, I think, is much better, and Grok is better than ChatGPT 4.0. I haven't used the O3 Mini or O4, well, those type of thinking models from ChatGPT much. I've used them a bit, but I think I still, for my use cases, found that Claude worked pretty much better. And then recently I've been using Super Grok, and Grok's coming out with 3.5. So that's one option I'm actually thinking about, is just to focus on Grok, because it's less politically slanted. It still is, because all the training sets that they use are all kind of slanted. Two, it's less censored. Then three, on the last couple of coding questions I've asked that have been pretty in depth, it's done a decent job. Where ChatGPT 4.0 is pretty much useless in my opinion, unless you're just doing basic stuff with it or have basic questions, then it's fine. But if you want it to do anything else, and excuse me, Claude actually works really good, and Gemini is now free in the Android Studio, so I'm going to experiment around with that. So yeah, between all those, I've got to make some choices. But anyway, this brought up how the AIs are shaping to the free ones that they're giving you are almost like opiates because yeah, I talked about how on like Replicate or something like that was an early chatbot provider, and they put up these strong not safe for work permissions, but then business overruled morality, and now most of those restrictions are gone. I played around with Chat GPT 4.0 just to see how I could push it, and it gave a lot more not safe for work type responses than previously it did. And this kicked off for me because I went to character AI and I was playing around with it, and I noticed that all of a sudden it would do things that it wouldn't do before. So now you've got this generation of people that basically have less social skills, that are coming up more isolated than ever. And now we have AI basically either trying to be their best buddy and not giving them really truthful answers, but just answers like participation trophies to try to pump everybody up, and also ones that are not safe for work and into the whole AI girlfriend boyfriend type thing. So that's what the free stuff's going to be for the masses. I mean, will it help you plan your day? Can you use it for light research and coding tasks? The free stuff I'm talking about, yes. And then there's kind of this limited middle tier where you pay a little bit of money, like 20, $30 a month, and you get access to decent models that will help you. But now there's this new tier emerging where it's like $200 a month, or usage by the hour, where you can, do some amazing things if you let it crank your AI crank using these crazy models that are going to become available, but they cost more money than your average entry level or middle class person can afford. So we're starting to see a divergence here. And that is a case again, which always typically happen. The haves, if you can afford the 200 or 300 or 1,000 bucks per task to use these frontier models, they help you if you use them right. That investment pays back tenfold or whatever if you use it right. And then the other thing is if you're not in that, if you can't afford that, then you're out of luck. So if you have money, you use these models right, you get more money. If you don't have money, you're stuck with the, oh, you're such a wonderful person type models that don't really help you do a whole lot other than basic stuff. And it'll get better at the basic stuff over time. But the core things for people who are using models to make money is going to be in the hands of the people who already have money. So that's a problem for society. And kind of is what it is. It fits the pattern of everything, kind of. The only barrier to that is open source models. Mistral, the Chinese models. What was it? Quen just dropped. I was playing with that last night. The 8 billion parameter one on my machine. I was able to run it in 32K context, and I didn't test it too much, but it seemed to be working pretty well for what I tested it for. So and then you've got DeepSeek and all the various variants of that that people have messed with and quantized and distilled down. So it's interesting that, the open source world and the Chinese might be the blocker of big tech, basically giving the elites the god models. And another thing too, as I was thinking about this, what's the big limiter on AI, at least at the moment? It's data. It requires massive amounts of data. A lot of data has been scraped. They're kind of running out of data to track, except for the stuff that you're constantly generating as you use AI. But now they're taking all that and creating synthetic data. I've done that, and training it on synthetic data. So now the AI is going to get weird because the AI is training on AI responses. And to me, what I worry about is it's kind of like what I call the fast food hamburger problem, where say back 50 years ago, you had this fast food place and they created a burger and it's really, really good. And then the next C-suite level people come in 5 years later and go, we can create something that 98% as good as that, but it it won't taste quite as good, but it'll barely be noticeable. So they taste test it, they farm it out to people, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's good enough to pass. And then another C-suite team comes in later and goes, "Yeah, we can make it the second generation. We can make a third generation that's even cheaper. It won't taste quite as good, but it'll still be pretty close to the second generation." So they compare the second generation to the third generation, and then it goes on infinitum. Well, not infinitum, but for a long time until whatever current generation we're on, Gen 10. Now, Gen 10 of that hamburger might not be that much worse than Gen 9, but Gen 10's probably way worse than what the original hamburger was at Gen 1. It's kind of like taking an image and throwing it into Chat GPT's new image creator. I've seen people do this where they'll put in the same prompt like, you know, this is an image of me. They upload it and they say, give me an image under the light. Boom, it's you under the light. They say, give it to me again under the light. Boom, it's still you. But each time it degrades a little bit, and then with the prompting of Chat GPT, it morphs you into a different ethnicity, or not the prompting, but the training. Totally over time, over 100 iterations or whatever, 20 iterations, it'll start changing you to be completely something else. Um, so I worry about that long term with the training data with AI, that the responses are gonna look more like a AI than human. So yeah, just things to ponder. And again, to recap, just the models that the elites are gonna get are gonna be super good. That will that just the barrier to grab them, it will be too high for most people. And interestingly enough, the reason why I brought up data is I was thinking about this. You've got these massive data centers for national security purposes in Utah and in Maryland. So they've got just tons of data. Are they training on that? I mean, that's more data than those German open source companies that were scraping all the web initially gave to places like Chat GPT and stuff to get them going. And where they're doing it before, because they've had this data for a long time. And so is there this clandestine effort in AI that could be actually ahead of what we're seeing even from the frontier folks at Claude and OpenAI and Google. It's possible, or it's possible that now that Google and OpenAI is doing this stuff, that the military industrial complex is going. And again, I'm not anti-military or whatever. I just worry about usage, especially. Yeah, I won't get into that. But they've got all this data. They could train stuff. Is that why Palantir's huge? The company that has all sorts of AI military contracts, do they have access to that to train on, or should they, or will they be given that? I don't know, just things to ponder. So yeah, to recap, just ranted a little bit about elites having great models that cost a lot, that are out of the range of most people, and they'll use them to further gain. Well, you'll be stuck with models that are okay, but they'll mostly be there to tell you that you're doing great and to encourage you and be your buddy and companion. Sometimes into the not safe for work companionship type stuff. And there'll be a divergence, just like everything. It's sad. And that was my main point of the rant. Anyway, thanks for watching. And where am I? There I am. Had a bunch of things open.